People also emphasize the need for mutual legal assistance as part of a challenge. You will agree with me that this is a really technical challenge. Some of the asset return that has not been very successful of recent, you can be traced to the fact that weak capacity at the state level, and this is something that I think that need to be pointed out very clearly, that if you want to have a successful asset recovery and asset return, how you engage in the mutual legal assistance is very important, and it is something that we think we need to strengthen our capacity on and see how we can also sustain this. And then, in absence of the proceeds of crime bill in Nigeria, for example, I'm happy that the government and the Ministry of Justice have in place an asset recovery and management unit that has been involved in coordinating issues on asset recovery. Now, why this is good in temporary, but I think that government need to look beyond short-term goal and begin to see how they can design a framework that can comply to the best practice globally, like Madam Juliet rightly identified in her paper. There's need for us to put in place the proceeds of crime bill. The proceeds of crime bill will help send the right signal, it will help put in place the right foundation, and it will help put in place the right management tool, because without the right management tool, the whole controversy we've heard of recent about EFCC and how asset is managed, all those will not come up. And then the role of the oversight like the National Assembly will be clearly stated out. Next slide, please. Now, we will just go, these milestones have been identified in, I would not like to bore you with this. We are familiar with this success story in Nigeria. It's something that is remarkable. It again gives political support to the need for us to continue to sustain the fight to ensure that illicit financial flow become an history in Nigeria and in the continent. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Sorry, I didn't want to bore you with all this success story in Nigeria so that our friends in the African country will not be jealous of us. But there are still challenges in Nigeria I can still share with you. We still have the $1 million of Alamesia still there in the US, and this is an area where the requested state need to also cooperate, like the US government and the Nigerian government. And this is also a key challenge in Nigeria, and that brings me up to the conversations around the issue of victim of corruption. In this instance, the laws and rules in the country, how the state and the federal government negotiate return to sub-unity government, is still something that is very challenging. And I think it's very important for the federal government through the Federal Ministry of Justice to begin to come out with a clear, defined rules that will guide the federal government and the state government. You see the controversies that came up very strongly on the 4.2 million pounds of Ibori money that was supposed to be going back to the Delta state, but now later was not left with the federal government. That's not very good. It didn't send the right signal to the international community, and I don't think it was good, because if you look up previous return before now, they were going to the state. Why was Delta state an exception? So that again, this kind of double standard of applying federal government rule does not help anybody. It doesn't help the requested state, nor the requesting state, nor the victim. Now, we all know that Ibori was never a minister, he was never a president, he was a governor of a state, and all the prosecution that took place in UK, it was as a result of his being the governor in Delta state. So the absence of a clear, coherent policy that guides the federal government and the state government is something that we need to also focus on as a challenging issue. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Now, I will say that the challenges are grouped around the issue of lack of institutional framework, like the poker. We all agree that the president of the country, who was the anti-corruption champion of the continent, need to also continue to support the Federal Ministry of Justice, ICPC, EFCC. They all need to come together and organize to make sure that the proceeds of crime bill is signed into law in Nigeria. It will help strengthen the asset recovery regime that we all know will help push the fight on illicit financial flow. Then the misunderstandings and doubts as to whether recover assets is the origin and all that can also be put in place, because once that laws are there, it can guide everybody. Then the issue of cooperation among all the anti-corruption agencies is fundamental. I must commend the Attorney General, commend the ICPC leadership and the EFCC new leadership. That they are now working together is something that is very, very, very good. It helps to send the right signal to the country, to the partners outside the country. It helps put our energy in one particular focus to make sure that things are properly done. And the way that we're focusing on this, using this kind of international conference to galvanize an African position, is something that we must continue to lay emphasis on. finally, last slide.